This video was made possible thanks to our wonderful supporters on Patreon. Check out patreon.com/GameExplain to become one yourself. Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door is typically lauded as the pinnacle of Paper Mario. Fans say it has the best characters, the best combat, and the most well-balanced implementation of the paper mechanics. But given that the game is officially retro now, we were curious if it was still the case, over 15 years later. That's one of the reasons why we launched our brand new Game Club series a few weeks ago. It's like a book club, but for games, where the GameExplain crew plays through the same game alongside all of you week by week, giving our in-depth thoughts every step of the way. But since those can be rather long, we're also introducing retro reviews that will serve as a shorter capstone to whether the game holds up or not. Of course, make sure to check out Game Club for our even more in-depth thoughts and consider supporting it on Patreon for more retro reviews too. So let's get to it. Is the Thousand-Year Door as good as we remember? Rather than the Mushroom Kingdom, the game takes place in and around the city of Rogueport, and from the moment you see it, it's clear that this is going to be a very different kind of Mario game. There's a Pianta Mafia that roughs up a rival street gang, Mario gets robbed shortly after entering the city, and, oh right, a freaking noose is hanging in the center of town. It all creates an edge that you wouldn't expect, and it's emphasized constantly in the dialogue, characterizations, and various settings. It still catches me off guard when the game tells the story of a tragic lost love, or how two lovers drifted apart, or even a surface-level look at an abuse victim finding their own power. The Thousand-Year Door is far from constant doom and gloom though. It's more that these elements add a richness to some of the characters that you wouldn't expect from a Mario game. After all, many of the locations and personalities are bright, colorful, or downright silly. Bowser is a consistent highlight as he tries and fails to insert himself into the plot, while the Detective Pennington really isn't all that great at his hobby. There are still jokes that make me smile after all these years, and a lot of that comes from the sharp writing. It's incredible just how much of it there is too, as Mario's first partner, Goombella, has something to say about every location, every NPC, and every enemy. This effortlessly creates the sense that this is a lived-in world with its own history and people going about their daily lives. Heck, constantly talking to certain NPCs after each chapter reveals how their stories play out, whether it's a Toad looking for his brother or a family trying to come together. It's something that can be ignored entirely, but is there for the people who love this kind of thing. The game is constantly changing things up, with each of its 8 chapters offering a completely different and sometimes bizarre scenario. While Chapter 1 is a traditional fantasy with Mario having to explore a castle and defeat a dragon, Chapter 3 is essentially a tournament arc with a cover-up happening behind the scenes. Then there's Chapter 4 taking things for a spooky turn with a curse that turns people into pigs, or Chapter 6, which takes place almost entirely on a train where you solve mysteries. It shows that Mario can be slotted into just about any situation and make it work. Some are better than others, but at least a few are bound to resonate with you. Personally, I adore Chapter 4 and 6. It's not just the strong characterizations and scenarios that make the Thousand-Year Door so memorable though. The combat is the best the series has ever seen, both before and since, improving upon what Paper Mario 64 established and having an actual purpose, unlike Sticker Star and Color Splash, with each battle offering a sense of satisfaction. And the presentation is a big part of that. Every time a battle is initiated, the scene shifts to a literal stage housing Mario, his partner, and their current enemies while an audience watches nearby. Mario always has access to a jump and a hammer, which are used depending on the situation. The hammer is mainly used for one big hit that gets past defenses, but it can't hit aerial enemies or those in the back row. Fortunately, Mario's jump is the opposite, allowing him to target any enemy but do less damage per hit. Knowing when to use which is important, as the game throws enemies at you that not only fly, but have spikes to protect from jumps, high defense, or even combinations of all of these. But that's just the combat at its most basic, as it always seeks to engage the player. You could just do a single jump on an enemy, although it's much better to hit the A button the moment Mario strikes so he can get a second jump in. You could just choose the hammer and let it go, but follow the prompt and the damage really stacks up. Every action Mario and his partners take relies on different prompts, which makes learning each move interesting, rewarding, and keeps things fresh. Even choosing which partner to use and when becomes important as the game goes on. It's also possible to use these action commands to defend against enemy attacks, lowering the damage, at least with the A button. Doing the same with the B button will actually deflect the attack and damage the enemy, but the timing is much tighter, creating a system that rewards you for paying attention to enemy attacks. Even the audience has a purpose, as the better you do in battle, the more they cheer, which quickly fills up your special gauge. New specials are obtained after gathering each crystal star, allowing for healing, special attacks, and buffs. This would be a compelling battle system on its own, but it truly shines thanks to the badges. These allow each player to customize Mario and take on battles in a multitude of different ways. Some offer new attacks, some change Mario's stats or provide occasional healing, while others provide defensive options. There's no wrong way to set them up, but it is fascinating seeing what each player prioritizes. Personally, I love the piercing hammer to cut through defenses, the power bounce to lay on damage, and zap tap to at least damage enemies a little when they attack. But Steve got a lot of use out of Shrink Stomp and other attacks that affected enemy stats. Again, there's no wrong way to do it, but you're going to need badge points if you want to equip a lot. Badge points can be earned after each level, but only if you choose to do so. After all, there's also the option of more health or more flower points, which allow you to perform special moves provided by badges. I always tended to keep them even, but focusing on one is completely viable. During Andre's playthrough for Game Club, he actually chose badge points every time, and while there were certainly scary moments, he succeeded in the end. Really, it just makes the game perfect for replayability, as you can try new builds and badges each time. Between chapters, you'll find yourself exploring Rogueport, which is filled to the brim with people to talk to, troubles to solve, and an underground labyrinth to map out. Sure, the map may point you to the next Crystal Star's location, but figuring out how to get there is the real challenge. It's a satisfying one too, as each one requires a new ally or paper ability that you receive throughout the game. In some ways, the Rogueport Underground is structured like a mini Metroid. You'll see a gap that's too far for Mario to jump, but after Yoshi joins, it clicks. You can use his flutter jump to cross it now. Likewise, there will be a panel for Mario to fold into a paper airplane or boat, leading to some new area or reward. It makes the return to Rogueport after each chapter exciting, as there's always something new to do or secret to finally solve. In Rogueport itself, there are minigames to play in a parlor, a bakery where items can be cooked into better ones, troubles to take that grant coins or unlock something new, and, as I said before, many of the NPCs have their own stories that evolve as you progress through the game that can easily be missed. One of the most memorable parts of the game is talking to Luigi, who's going on his own quest, which is just one mishap after another. It helped endear you to Luigi before he became the fan favorite that he is today. There's a reason people are still hoping for a Paper Luigi spin-off. But even beyond Luigi, there's an NPC that gives the history of Rogueport, and one that goes on a quest for riches who runs into characters and locations from Paper Mario 64. Again, it makes this world feel interconnected and real, especially when the previous adventure is mentioned. When looking at the total playtime, the Thousand Year Door's individual chapters really aren't that long. The true depth and time spent comes from everything you do between those moments. While not all of them are as memorable as the chapters, they do paint a complete tapestry of this world. That said, the Thousand Year Door isn't without its issues, and the biggest are the pacing and backtracking. Many of the chapters have Mario running back and forth over and over again within a set area. It's not terrible at first, but each new chapter seems to ramp it up, peaking in Chapter 7, where you're literally running around the entire world in search of a single character. The whole thing is presented as a protracted joke, but the payoff is just annoying. It's not funny, and it highlights how much padding there is at points. Dialogue can go on for a while with many long-winded characters, and Mario often falls asleep himself. That's the joke, you see. This can be cute, but upon replay, it comes across more as disrespectful of my time and downright aggravating. Some chapters do pull it off well enough, but the backtracking stands as an often forgotten blemish on the game. That applies to the troubles I mentioned earlier as well. There's a lot of good reasons to do them, whether for extra money, insight into the lives of NPCs, new minigames, and even an unlockable party member. But they also often require Mario to return to previous areas, which is simply a hassle in a game where fast travel isn't really a thing. There are some hidden warp pipes later, but they're a bit of a pain to get to themselves and don't even cover every location. It would be less obnoxious if you could take on multiple troubles at once, but nope, they can only be taken one at a time. It quickly becomes a tedious endeavor if you try to do even most of them. The Thousand Year Door constantly struggles with its pacing, but thankfully, the graphics have aged gracefully. While Paper Mario Color Splash has undoubtedly surpassed it, the relatively simple style has proven to be timeless. The paper aesthetic is used well, really playing up this world, which is a fantastic improvement over the original Nintendo 64. There are some beautiful scenes on display like the sunset at Riverside Station or the gothic look of Twilight Town. And the music is still as fantastic and memorable as it ever was, with catchy remixes, new songs that capture the energy of each location, and a battle theme that just never gets old. There are a few songs that are only okay, such as the final dungeon, but for the vast majority, it's a winner. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door holds up remarkably well. The story is entertaining with some surprisingly heartfelt moments, the battle system is still as fun and rewarding as it ever was, and it's a joy to look at and listen to as well. There's a reason this game is held up by so many. With tons of secrets to find, including unique dialogue from every party member and ways to change up combat, it's shocking how replayable it is. Really, the only blemish is the pacing and backtracking. I know it annoys me to no end, and yet the charm on display carries me through. I love this game and hope it gets re-released at some point so more people can play it. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door deserves it. But that's just my review, as Game Club is all about playing these games together. So what did my co-hosts think? What about you, Andre?
I was so happy to discover that this game still largely holds up to the test of time. It has a sharp and still shockingly contemporary script, some fantastic mysteries, gotta love Twilight Town, and a battle system that's still fun to this day. But a few chapters do feel a little uninspired compared to the others, and some parts of the game are definitely too heavy on the backtracking. But by and large, this is an experience that holds up, and I like it a lot.
And you, Ash?
Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is still my favorite game in the Paper Mario series, and it's really not even close. Yeah, replaying it did remind me that it has some major pacing issues, mainly with all that backtracking, but the game gets everything else so right that it more than makes up for those low points. I love this game. Also, Goombella. Just Goombella. She's the best. Period.
How about you, Steve?
Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door is very much a product of its time. Back in 2005, certain things were acceptable that I don't think would fly in 2020, both in the sense of the writing as well as the game mechanics. There's a lot of backtracking in this game, and a few moments I just don't like. That said, it has one of the most clever, funny, well-written scripts I've ever seen in a Mario game. It might be my favorite Mario story of all time. I like it a lot, and I think if you've never played it, you should definitely give this one a shot.
But what about all of you? How did you enjoy your revisit of Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door if you played along with us? Or what do you think now? Let us know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe to Game Explain for more on Paper Mario, future game clubs, and all things gaming.